Hello, I want to talk about the best way to start learning herbs that will not overwhelm you. I have so many people ask me all the time, Lisa, how do I get started? I feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. People always want to have the information, but it's like drinking from the ocean, right? There's a lot to learn and a lot to know. So I think what I see over and over is just that overwhelm really prevents people from just putting one foot in front of the other and getting started. So what I want to do is help you find a way where you feel comfortable getting started and you feel confident in what it is that you're learning, and so that you actually start, right? So that's the whole point of this, and we're going to talk about specifically what herbs, what are you learning for, what, all of that. So obviously in the past 5 years, really, in our world, there have been a lot of changes that have gotten people to really look at natural healing, herbs, alternative medicine, whether it's being used as complementary or a substitute for Western medicine. It doesn't matter. A lot of things that happen to really get our attention to why do I want to learn herbs, right? What else is out there for me to use for healing my body, fixing my body, helping support my body, right? And I think this is why I have gotten, over the past 5 years, really intently more people asking me about them and how can I learn them, and what do we do? I mean, people are waking up to natural just based on some of the new leaders in our world right now, trying to help people see, hey, some of the old ways have not been good. The government has backed some things that have not been healthy for us. We've seen it. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know the things that are out there. And now that people are waking up, they're starting to question, well, how bad is this XYZ drug or medication for me? Also, the other thing that's happening, and I see this a lot more now, is there are more and more drug recalls, more and more black box medication prescriptions being prescribed out there that are really causing hurtful, harmful impacts on people's bodies. Some are extreme, obviously, causing death to some people. I had a gal who worked for me, years ago. Her husband was a diabetic, type 1, his whole life, right? They put him on a very common diabetes medication, metformin, very, very common, very popular. He began having problems. He began having gastroparesis. And for those who don't know what that is, you can't hold anything down. Your body is just rejecting everything. It's not digesting things properly. You're living in the restroom. It's horrible. And it's also very dangerous, especially for someone who has an autoimmune disorder like diabetes. And I remember her asking me all these questions, and we talked about diet. We did all these diet changes. We talked about herbs she could use in conjunction with what she was doing for him. And we tried all these things, and eventually, all she said is he was on a diabetes medication. Finally, she told me what it was. My eyes went, oh no. And she discovered, with some direction, that metformin's actually been recalled because it causes gastroparesis, and it has had a lot of people actually lose their life from using it. So for her husband, that's exactly what was happening. He lost so much weight, it was getting dangerous to his kidneys. That's how fast it happened. So once she found that out, she completely stopped it and then learned how to manage everything for him using diet and herbs. And as a type 1 diabetic, that's not usually a thing that people can do. You have to rely on some insulin, but after healing his body, they've been able to do that. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but she was able to see, oh, this is not working, but there are alternatives. And that's the whole point. I can tell you tons of stories of people who have walked in here in my store and asked me, I need help. My doctor prescribed XYZ. I'm having these problems. I don't want it. What else can I do? Right? I think oftentimes, and I know you can relate, oftentimes doctors are trained for Western medicine. They are trained for prescription. You have these symptoms, I give you this pill, everything is fine. That's what they're trained for. They're not trained for alternative medicine. They are not trained for herbs. They are not trained very much on diet and exercise and things that could help. So it's very common things will come up. Blood pressure, that's a huge one. High blood pressure, what do I do? And I feel like doctors that are trained in Western medicine are immediately going to go, here's the pill. Those pills have so many side effects, right? And you don't want it. And this is the whole thing. So there are things you can do before it gets to that point. What I feel like is, it's sort of like going, oh, you have a cut on your toe, you got a hangnail on your toenail. Let's just cut the toe off, right? Why do we have to go so extreme? We don't have to start there. This is why I want to empower you to learn a different way, a possible other approach that you can take before maybe things get to that place. Am I completely 100% against all Western medicine? No, there's a place for it. And some people need it more than others according to where they are in their life, what's happened to their body, their healing journey, their lifestyle. There's a lot of reasons for it. What I want to do is teach you how to safely feel good about using herbs, starting to learn them, and going to that first. If you have a cold or a flu, do you need to start with something so extreme? No, you don't. Most of the time, we forget this, but the body is actually, it spikes a fever to burn off a bacterial, a viral, some sort of infection. That's its job. Do you always want to get rid of a fever? No. You just want to make sure your body's comfortable through it. So there are reasons why our body responds the way that it does. And when we take Western medicine all the time, we're not really helping it. Sometimes we're hurting it more, especially with those side effects. So I'm very glad to see a lot of this new stuff coming up and a lot of people wanting answers for a different alternative route, right? So I want to assure you, you do not have to have the goal of being a master herbalist or a clinical herbalist or something really in-depth just to learn herbs. You don't have to want that, because you can spend thousands of dollars, you can spend hundreds of hours learning this and getting this knowledge so that you can help your family learn what to do if they have a cough or a cold, get off of their blood pressure medication. These are some simple things. You don't have to go that far and that deep if that's not your goal and you don't have time for that, or maybe that's not even in your budget. This is the reason that I have our herbal education program here at the co-op. We have a way that people can come get their little herbs. We give them the information. They do it on their own. Or for those online, you can get all the PDF files and the videos and all the instructional part. It's for basics, right? Not everybody wants to be a budding herbalist and that's their career, right? So it's okay if that's not your career. Start somewhere. That's what I want to talk about. So you want to be able to do it with some safety in place. You want to feel good about, comfortable, I should say, about using these herbs that you learn, right? That's the biggest thing. So the most important thing is we're going to make it manageable where you start so that you feel comfortable. The biggest thing that gets missed in a lot of herb books, if you just pull a book off the shelf and just start learning, right? A lot of things that is missed are the precautions or drug interactions, because that's really important. Again, like I said, there may be somebody who is on some cancer medication and they want to do alternative things and natural things and herbs as well. Okay, but what interacts? You need to know some of this, and it is important, but do you have to know everything about herbalism to know if this is safe for that? No, you don't have to know everything, but you got to start learning a few things. You don't have to know everything. So that's the first question I would ask is, what are your goals? What are your goals for learning this? Is it just to, I just want to help my family, or maybe it's I just want to start down the path of what else is out there, alternative medicine. What are your goals with it, right? So just ask yourself that. The next question you want to ask yourself that's very important is who? Who are you going to be using these herbs for? Is it for yourself only? Okay, you know yourself. You know what you have, your conditions, what you don't want or need. Great. Is it for your family? Because that's common, right? Maybe your husband, your mom, your dad, your children. Okay, is it for children? Children are different sometimes, right? Maybe it's for friends, right? So ask yourself, who is it that I want to use these herbs on or with? And I'm not talking about the big goal out here. I'm talking about where are you starting right now today. Start with yourself, start with your family, if they're open to it, your kids, right? Who is it you want to learn this information for? The reason I ask is because you need to know your audience so you know what herbs you're going to start with. I do have one precaution, animals. Animals are very different. So if your goal is to learn herbalism and herbs for animals only, very different than using it with people. That is a whole separate side branch of herbalism, and it has its own niche. So if you're doing that, you got to really focus on what you're learning just for animals, and not every animal is the same. So that's my precaution on that. So getting back to knowing who you want to do this for, the reason I say that is because you want to know those people's basic medical conditions and their basic medical health. When you know their basic medical conditions, it's yourself, it's your family, it's your kids. Okay, maybe you know the top 3 things you're working with. Maybe it's just basic kid stuff, like when my kid has the flu or some allergies. Well, I just want to know what to do that's natural to start with. Great, you're focusing on kid medicine. Amazing. Maybe you know you're going to do this for yourself and your husband has high blood pressure. Okay, you want to know one of the first herbs you're going to want to learn is something that'll help regulate blood pressure. Okay, maybe you have digestive issues, all right? You want to know that's going to be addressed. Maybe your sister has severe anxiety and depression. All right, now we know what herbs we want to start putting in that package you're going to start working with. So, looking at who you want to use these herbs with, what are their basic medical conditions? The other most important condition or set of conditions you need to look at are autoimmune disorders. That's a whole different set of herbs, and that's very important because a lot of books don't talk about this, herb courses don't talk about it, herbalists don't talk about it, and it's very important because you do not want to make someone's autoimmune disorder worse or go into a flare. Here's an example. Hashimoto's thyroid disease. There are some herbs that are great for everybody except for those with Hashimoto's. You just want to know. So knowing those conditions and knowing if they have an autoimmune disorder is important. In general, the reason why is in general, people with an autoimmune disorder of any kind have a weakened immune system, more weak than others, no matter what the autoimmune disorder is. And so you want to make sure when you pick your herbs to start learning, they are autoimmune friendly and they are not going to be too stimulating for this person's immune system. So, my precautions on knowing what conditions you're going to work with, that's the reason you want to start learning those first few herbs. Precautions is going to be anyone with organ transplant patient of any kind of organ transplant patient can get really complicated really fast because they're on immune suppressors and you don't want to fight that. And the other condition I would really put up there would be kidney failure, because kidneys are really, really difficult because the kidneys have to filter everything. And herbs, great herbs, can be too hard and too much for the kidney. So again, precaution there if those are the conditions that you're wanting to look. So, okay, I know why I want to do it. I know who, I know their conditions. Now what? Pick 10. 10 herbs you're going to start learning. These 10 herbs are going to be the ones you're going to focus, you're going to go deep as you can with whatever information is in front of you, right? You're going to pick these 10 herbs and you're going to study them really well and learn them really well. Yeah, I'm going to give you a list of more than 10 to start with, but there's a reason. But the 10 that you're going to start picking, you're going to make sure match up. It's going to, at least something in there is probably going to cover something in my family or the reason that I want to do this, right? The reason I'm not telling you what 10 herbs is because what are the conditions of the people that you want to help, right? Well, someone over here needs something for blood pressure, but this person only needs kid herbs, right? So they're not all the same. Also, autoimmune, that autoimmune disease thing. So let's talk about my picks for the top basic herbs. I'm going to give you a list of about 15, and within those 15, I would say pick 10. I'm only going to give you the highlights of these herbs. The highlights of these herbs are not going to be every detail of everything that these herbs do. I'm going to give you a 1 or 2 word highlight of mainly what these herbs do so you know how to pick your 10, okay, of what I recommend to start with. Okay, so let's talk about the herbs that you can choose from, and then I'm going to help you to maybe narrow that down a little bit. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how to do it, right? So chamomile. I love chamomile. It's amazing, right? It's good for cough, fever, relaxation. Remember, it's going to do 20 million other things. I'm just giving you the highlights there. Also great for digestion. So it's a great kid herb. Wonderful because it's gentle. Flowers are gentle generally. We love this. Easy to work with. So chamomile is a good one to look at. Another one is nettles, stinging nettles. Stinging nettles are amazing for allergies, great vitamin nutrients when you need support. Again, does a million other things. We're only going to talk about the basics. Another one I recommend would be holy basil. Holy basil is a great adaptogen, good for anxiety, depression, a million other things, but a good place to start right there, just for the basics. It's a good one. Next one I would suggest would be yarrow. Yarrow is really good for hormone rebalancing, wound healing, and digestion in general, because it does a lot of other things. But just to get an idea, okay, you see how I'm mixing it up? We have quite a few different herbs to start with. Next one I would look at or consider would be lavender. Great for relaxation, great for kids. It's a good kid herb because it's very gentle. The next one, rose. Rose is amazing for skin and skin healing, also for depression. It's very uplifting. This is a good kid one again for anybody, but the next one I would look at would be consider hibiscus for those who need heart or circulation issues, blood pressure issues. That's a good one to look at and add in there. The other one I would consider would be peppermint. Peppermint is amazing for digestion, headache relief. Again, does a lot of other things. Those are the basics, right? Is that something you're looking for? Pain relief with headaches? Okay. Another one to consider might be dandelion leaf. I say leaf because you want to start with leaf. Dandelion, all parts you can use. Dandelion is a lot in there, but it's a good detoxifier, good for stomach digestion. Does a million and one other things, but it's a good one to start with. The other one I would consider is turmeric and ginger. So turmeric is actually a food and a spice. I'm going to include it because it's a good anti-inflammatory, good for wound healing, digestion. Really good one to get to know. Next one is ginger. Again, good for inflammation, good for digestion. These are good ones to choose. The next one I would look at would be calendula, maybe if you're looking for a skin soother. That one is, if you're going to consider leaving one off and you want to wait a little bit till you've gained a little more knowledge, you can bump that one down. I just put it up there for those who really want to, who need skin soothers. The other one I want to recommend is lemon balm. It's a great antiviral, great antidepressant, great anti-anxiety. Here's the precaution. Not good for Hashimoto's autoimmune. So there's your precaution on that one. The next one would be elderberry. Everybody talks about elderberry. They love elderberry. Why? It's a good immune booster. Does a lot of other things, but also a good immune booster. Here's your precaution. Not autoimmune safe. For most people, it's too much of an immune stimulant, and it's too much, and it makes autoimmune symptoms flare. Often, not always. The next one, or the last one I'm going to recommend, is echinacea. Again, your precaution. It's a great immune booster, but it will stimulate an autoimmune disorder too much sometimes. So those last three I put with precautions. If you're looking for autoimmune safe, I would not choose those. So those are the herbs that I would look at starting with and diving deep, really getting to know every parts of them, right? Let's talk about how to use them. These are procedures. You want to start with basic procedures. You don't want to start at the end where you're over here putting together oxymels and complicated, tincturing and salves. Start with the basics. You want to start learning how to do a basic tea infusion. It's called a tisane. Basic tea infusion. It's not like every other tea. When you go to make normal tea, green tea, 3 to 5 minutes steep, you're good. Anything beyond that, it usually gets bitter. When it goes to medicinal herbs, generally it's anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes steep. It's way longer. Most average around 20 minutes steep. So when you look at your herbs that you're going to pick, you will look and start researching, how long steep time do I do this? How much do I need to extract from it, right? So really good to learn how to do tea infusions. I always recommend starting those as singles. Don't mix it with other herbs, just by itself when you start. Then you can start combining when you've got your fleet underneath you. The next thing would be a decoction. Decoction is a little bit more like an infusion, but we're going way further and longer. A decoction could be 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. This is for something a little hardier, like your roots and your mushrooms. So this is good to learn, right? Work with that. After that, I would learn infusions of vinegar and oil. How do I do an oil infusion? How do I do a vinegar infusion? Because these are also very, very helpful. For example, a good fire cider. That's a good example of a vinegar infusion. You can learn how to do that. Good example of an oil infusion would be making your own oil of oregano. So you're going to learn that process. Learning those infusion processes is what you need, because you need to know it's an extraction, right? How do you extract the medicine from the herb? Playing with these different styles will give you different potency, and then you know, I can use this with this person, this with the other. Then the other thing I would do is syrups. Syrups are usually honey based, it could be maple syrup based, but you're learning, so elderberry syrup, great example. Your kid's sick, you learn how to make elderberry syrup, you infuse this syrup and honey with these herbs properly, and how to do that right. The reason I start with those, and I say just start there, is because learning those will teach you the basics, so that later when you're feeling more comfortable, and now you're learning more herbs, you can start to learn a little more complex things. You're going to learn tinctures, alcohol extractions. You're going to learn how to take the infusions you learned and use that in a salve. Now it's a 2-step process, see? So this is how you start. I know it can feel overwhelming, but this is why here at the Co-op we have a great online, like I said, online herb course. You can go in there. You can go anywhere and get something, but start with these basics. That way you feel comfortable. You're building your confidence before you start adding more and more herbs and more procedures. So you can do this, because natural healing is totally doable. So get started. You can do this.